Hello everyone, this is Ricky Fury bringing you another video, except this video is going to be a little bit different than the other ones because a lot of the feedback that I've been receiving recently is that a lot of you want to know how my current build actually works on my ship. So I'm going to pause the survivability videos for a day and just go over my current build on my ship. Now, the first thing to mention is that with any build that you have on a starship, it all revolves around what energy type you're going to use, or if you're going to use it, or if you're going to use exotic abilities, it's going to be all around that. So for tanks, you often want to use just one damage type and use Beam 5 Fire Will, and that's how you tank in PvE. Now for me as a tank. Most of the weapon types were basically the same, like, oh yeah, here's this cool proc that really doesn't matter to allow me to survive. Oh yeah, here's this other one. But there was one particular energy type that I found that actually did allow me to tank better. And that is Piezo Polaron beam arrays. Now the fun part about these beam arrays is that whenever you get the proc of the energy off, instead of it doing like a debuff to the enemy or something like that, it adds a buff to yourself. And this particular buff is really nice. The buff is that it adds additional shield regen for 10 seconds, and it adds additional hull regen based upon your max hull for 10 seconds, which is also really nice. So on my particular build, I have 3 of the regular Piezo Polarons that I just got for free based off of the Lucari reputation and leveling up to level 5. And then the other, I do have a 4th Piezo Polaron. That's the advanced version. That I have the 2-piece version for, just so that I get some additional Polaron damage. That's what the 2-piece has. It gives an additional 15% Polaron damage alongside this console here inside the reputation, which is basically another tactical console, except instead of having an additional crit chance on it, it has additional flight turn rate and additional maximum shield capacity, which for a tank, that's really nice to have, alongside just amplifying my damage even further. The reason why I have something that's not a Polaron, that's not a Piezo Polaron in the 5th slot here, is just because it's a 5-3 configuration. I wanted to have 3 Omnis in the back. So there's the regular crafted Polaron, which will be replaced by the new Omni Polaron whenever the new reputation next month comes out. There's the Kinetic Cutting Beam, and then there's the Chronometric Polaron Beam Array. And I have that with this just for a 2-piece bonus. The 2-piece bonus doesn't really do much, it just gives some additional aux power, which overall gives me a little bit more survivability based upon 2 traits that I have. Now the reason why I do 3 Omnis in the back and 5 Polaron, 5 regular beams in the front is because with the way that the arcs work, basically this full 270 degrees here and that whole area, I am going to be doing the same amount of damage throughout that whole area. And it's really just the rear 90 degrees of my ship that I'm not. So as a tank, I literally don't have to worry too much about the positioning of my ship. Besides, trying to get it in the front 180 just to get my my gravity well off. But really, outside of that, it's just getting into the thick of it and just making sure that I'm near the enemy ships, and that I'm doing the damage and doing my firewall that I need to attack the enemy ships. So that's why I have it that way. As for my devices, I use a red Meyer capacitor, subsized field modulator, the temporal negotiator from the Delta recruit stuff, which that advantage had just been going on, as well as the Nimbus powered distress call, which you technically don't need to have in devices to use it. You just need it in your inventory. But I set there anyways because it's just a 4th slot. For engineering consoles, the Piezo focuser from the Lucari reputation for additional Polaron damage, along with a Tachykinetic Converter and Bio-Neuron Fusion circuits. These are both lobby consoles that are pretty standard to doing more DPS that happen to give you better survival as well, so that's why I use those. Because I'm using 8 beam weapons, having the plasmodic leech is extremely nice. You're able to get this off of the exchange for a lot of times at least less than 3 million credits, which isn't really that much. I also have the protomatter field projector from the Lucari ship. And then the DPRM console. A lot of people will say like this is the go-to survival console in the entire game, just because it gives you some damage resistance rating as well as some extra directed energy damage, along with the clicky that gives you bonus damage resistance and hull regen. Now, for me as a tank, this damage resistance stuff I don't really care about. What I care about really is the tiny bit of directed energy damage that this console does, combined with the hull regen from the clicky ability. That in one of my other videos I did demonstrate, and it does do lots of it. It does do a decent amount of damage resistance as well. It does spike this pretty high as well, especially when I'm using other things. Another one in here that I use is the multi-target tractor arrays. I use this mainly for the clicky. It does do some damage resistance that I don't really care about. It also gives some controller expertise and flight turn rate, but it's really the clicky that gives me additional threat. As I said, tractor beams are one of the 0 distance abilities, and this thing's no different. Using this will basically make enemies attack you. I also use this console. I don't know how to actually say it, but it's a console that comes with the Shenzhou ship, the one that I'm using. It has some engineering readiness, which is nice because that's a 10% cooldown reduction on engineering bridge option cooldowns. That's how the skill tree works that way. It also gives additional accuracy and defense, which is really hard to find, and also gives some hull regen. And it's also a last-ditch effort. I have absolutely nothing left. I'm about to die, and I can literally just click that if I really need to. I really don't want to, because the moment that I do that, then enemies can't target me, and then my allies who are nearby are going to probably get blown up. But absolute worst case scenario is I click this for like 3 or 4 seconds, and I come right back with some additional all damage to get the threat back on me, and then I'm good to go again. And for tactical consoles, this is pretty standard, just to have the full of the energy type that you're using with critical chance. I technically could have gone with an exploiter for one of these, but I feel, especially because I don't particularly like to use DOFs, because I like to have multiple characters, and that's kind of that's a lot of money to spend on just one character. I feel that this is perfectly fine. As for skills, this is the stuff as it is. 1 point hull restoration, 2 in hull capacity, 1 in shield restoration, 2 in shield capacity, full energy damage. I don't use stretch projectiles, so I don't have anything in there. I have full accuracy and defense, because those are really hard stats to get, as well as complete on crit severity and crit chance. I have both points in EPS flow, because that's really important for DPS and to keep that up. 1 point in impulse, just to keep up with other people in runs. 2 points in control expertise, 2 points drain expertise. Drain expertise is good for the plasmodic leech. Control expertise is nice to have additionally for the gravity well that I have. All 3 points in hull plating, just because damage resistance scaling sucks, and I don't like to invent best consoles just for that damage resistance, and so just I'm having the 3 points in there so that the wasted type of stuff is being wasted here instead of in my precious consoles that I have. I also have 2 points in shield hardness, because shield resistance is extremely important, and it's an invisible trait in the game. Feel free to watch that video if you haven't yet. It's, in my opinion, it's probably one of the most important videos that I've put out this far. point in defensive and offensive system tuning just to have just some more max power. 2 points in exotic particle just to have my gravity will hurt more. All 3 points in long range sensors so that the distance penalty for damage is less, so that my stuff does more damage and thus more threat. This is kind of the debate here as to whether you put your points in hull penetration or shield penetration. At least overall, when I was doing damage like before, I added the points here because I was still debating this myself. When I was like timing it, I was doing much more time attacking them whenever their shields were up than whenever they were down. So I personally like shield penetration. You definitely can easily argue hull penetration, that's perfectly fine. Then I have another warp core potential and then a point in shield mastery and shield absorption, just so that my shields negate a critical hit every 20 seconds, and whenever a critical hit does hit me, it adds some additional shield healing to me. This isn't as valuable in PvE, but especially in PvP when people have a lot of critical chance, this is extremely valuable. So that's the basis of that. My specializations are pretty straightforward. Pilot Specialist. This is a fairly new character, so the Strategist isn't leveled up the whole way, but Pilot is. I have Pilot for the Lone Wolf ability, as well as basically everything in the Tier 3 stuff here. Turn the Other Cheek is super nice, because especially as a tank, if I'm getting hit on all sides, this damage resistance by 20% to the opposite shield facing basically means that all my shield facings have an additional shield resistance by an additional 20%, which is really nice. Not to mention that every 30 seconds, if I'm getting hit on all sides, I'm immune to all damage for 4 seconds. I mentioned that whenever people are near me, I get additional damage and additional defense, which is nice. With Strategist, the healing that I'm doing gives me temporary hit points because I'm threatening. If you're non-threatening, you get crit chance, but because I'm a tank, the threatening gives me temporary hit points, so I can last longer. Diversionary Tactics gives me an additional taunt. And so yeah, in terms of traits, for ground traits, I'm not really the best at ground, but I'll mention 2 traits that I think are pretty nice. There's a trait called Ironsides, which gives additional damage resistance and health regen, and Molts, which is a very much a beginner ground trait that I have used on basically all of my characters when I've been leveling them up, just so that I don't have to worry about their health. They'll just heal back whenever they've gone to the damage threshold. Especially when you get into the like level 60 and maybe level 65 battles, this will proc several times per ground battle. For space traits, I'll just go through all of them really quick. Ablative Shell, super nice. I think a lot of people in PvP will actually use that. Context is for Kings isn't that great, but it's just another ability that I have. Accuracy and Defense, just having an additional 10 points in each one of those. Pattern Recognition. This is one of the only 2 traits that I've been able to find that actually gives additional shield resistance in your traits. So that's why I have it. Defense is also nice too, but it's really for the shield resistance. That's why I have it. Secret Command Codes. Whenever I get hit by a control ability, I get additional resistance to control, and I get some additional hit points pretty soon after that. Techie for just some additional hull and hull restoration. Imposing Presence. The outgoing hull feeling is nice, but I just have this to get some additional threat generation on top of everything that's going on. And then lastly, Warp Theorist, just for some additional power levels. In terms of my space traits, I use Honored Dead for the damage resistance and the health regeneration. It is one of the best tanking traits in the entire game. I would say this is basically on par with Shield Overload in terms of how good it is. Really, the bigger difference is that Honored Dead basically is working the whole time and you don't have to think about it. Shield Overload, you have to actually think about it and constantly activate your emergency power to shields in order to have this trait be going. but it's still nice. Because I use 8 beams, supremacy is pretty important to have as well, so that when I'm using beam fire will, it's adding 2 power level for 15 seconds for every enemy that's getting hit by it. And then for this last trait, um, a lot of times I switch out invincible with just something else. But for the most part, I only use this for 2 Qs. And that's Hive Onslaught and for Mirror Invasion, the current Q that's going on right now. Then Space Reputation, I have Whole Healing, just to get some more healing whenever I'm dealing damage, which synergizes with my kit. Active Full Hardening, and then Ox Power offense and defense. Then Active Reputation of Anti-Time Entanglement to synergize with Gravity Well. Force Challenge, just for people to stay around me longer. And then Biological Shield Manager and Poison Sensor Interface to just add some AoE stuff that's going on. So that's about it for my personal ship build. Hopefully that was interesting for you all. Thanks for listening in and enjoy your day.